Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for Monday, June the 11th, 2012. Wanted to start off looking at sea surface temperature anomalies, those departures from normal. And this comes from the NOAA NESDIS site, and it's more of a snapshot for today. And you can see that a good deal of the tropical Atlantic at or just a little bit above normal. There are some areas of below normal anomalies. The subtropical Atlantic, especially the North Atlantic, below normal considerably. Then you see the warming here in the eastern Pacific, part of the growing El Nino that's trying to take shape. And then that's in the background, though, of this huge Pacific decadal oscillation, just a cooling of the Pacific in general. So that's trying to counterbalance what's going on with this warming right along the equator. Not real significant yet. It may get there, but will it be enough to thwart the Atlantic hurricane season as we get into August, September, October especially? It's hard to tell. Looking at a different perspective of the anomalies, this is the Reynolds version, and it's just named by the gentleman that came up with the procedure of analyzing sea surface temperature anomalies, and then it's a 7-day average from the 9th of June going back about a week. So it's a different methodology, different ways of deriving these products. And here you see a little bit of a cold area between Africa and a little bit more than halfway over to the Lesser Antilles here, with nothing really jumping out. Maybe this area kind of looks like a chili pepper. And it is hot. Those Atlantic waters warmer than normal by a significant amount. And then you see a very large area of colder than normal water. It doesn't really matter right now because it's June. It'll really matter, of course, once we really crank up the season in August and September. Speaking of the El Nino situation, this is a subsurface chart that comes from the Climate Prediction Center, I believe. And we're going back here to February, and we're looking at the surface at the top and then several hundred meters deep at the bottom. This is the eastern Pacific, this is the western Pacific. So it's kind of like a CAT scan of the tropical Pacific. And you see the large area of cold water existing in the East Pacific and how that shrinks as we get into March, especially in April, and then it's completely gone in May. But this warm subsurface water also kind of shrinks and stretches out. It doesn't grow and expand and get warmer. Everything's just kind of fading into almost neutral to just slightly warm here. So you trade off all this cold water for just a little bit of an anomaly on the warm side. Probably not a major El Nino coming. I don't see much evidence of that, and this subsurface chart, I think, helps to reinforce that. So we'll see how things go as we get through June, July, August. But you know, a little bit of a warming in the Pacific. But that can tend to shift the balance just a little bit over history. We've seen in your neutral and weak El Nino years quite a few impacts on the United States. So don't take it as a sign that, hey, I don't have to do anything this hurricane season because there's an El Nino. We just don't know. And it only takes one. I know it's cliche, but you got to be ready for that one that might come visit you. Looking at the Pacific, you can see what I'm talking about. It's fairly warm here in the eastern Pacific compared to normal. That's what the yellows, the oranges, and some of these reds indicate. But then there's colder water trying to filter in here. You can see some of that yellow snaking its way through. That comes from the Humboldt Current and upwelling off the coast of South America. Then that spreads westward because of trade winds due to high pressure sitting here over the eastern Pacific. And in the background, we do have the big PDO, the cold PDO, all this very cold water in the Pacific and the El Nino trying to blend in, kind of like pouring a cup of hot coffee into an Olympic-sized pool. You're just not going to make much of a dent. Not quite the same analogy, but you get the idea. Current conditions in the tropics, the Atlantic nice and quiet. Finally got that moisture out of most of the Gulf Coast area so that the I-10 corridor almost dried out. Still some rain showers and convective activity over the parts of the Panhandle of Florida, southeast Alabama, but nothing in the tropics to speak of. Even the eastern Pacific Invest area 93E calming down. It just looks like a mess. Remember what I told you, showing you yesterday, I believe it was, your nice cocoon of high pressure aloft was over here, and the winds coming around that are sort of tearing this thing apart. Not going to develop much, it doesn't look like, and the East Pacific stays quiet for the time being. We do see the MJO swinging around into areas of the Western Hemisphere and Africa. Going to maybe hang around in this area for a little while, meaning that maybe we start to see some tropical waves develop off of Africa. We'll have to watch. When you see the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, coming into areas 8 and 1 like this, it is fairly shallow though. It's not swinging way out here, but it is a sign that there might be a little bit of a development opportunity, at least an increase in convective activity over the Western Hemisphere and possibly Africa, which can lead to more development down the road. It's sort of a chicken and egg thing, so we'll watch that in the days and weeks ahead. And that's it. You're caught up now for Monday, June the 11th, 2012. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth with HurricaneTrack.com. Glad to contribute these video blogs to Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.